We begin this morning with senior contributor Ted Koppel talking with David Kaczynski, whose tip led to the capture of one of the most notorious domestic terrorists in American history, the Unabomber, a man who happened to be his own brother.
This looks like a happy kid, doesn't it?
Yeah, in some of these early photos, he's beaming.
The little boy with the bird on his shoulder, that's Ted. His kid brother, that's David. One of these children would end up terrorizing the nation.
I even have Ted's baby shoes that Mom saved. Now, my mother always dwelled on the possibility that Ted's problems had originated in early childhood. When he was 9 months old, he developed a kind of rash. He spent over a week in the hospital. They were only allowed to visit twice a week. My mom said that was a trauma for Ted.
Still, he would develop into such a smart kid, with an IQ of 167, admitted to Harvard at age 16.
And at Harvard, Ted was recruited for a psychological study. They were actually studying the effects of emotional trauma, but they told him it was just to talk about philosophy. He was put into these conversations with he thought was a peer, another guinea pig in the study, but actually it was a graduate student who'd been coached to say abusive things. And he was in that study for 3 years.
That might account for some of his antisocial behavior, but Ted Kaczynski would ultimately withdraw from society altogether. He moved to Montana, built himself a little cabin.
Montana can get very cold in the winter. He had in the middle a potbelly stove, and that's where he would boil his water from a nearby stream. The bathroom was any place you could dig a hole outside. I kind of modeled my cabin after his, although I didn't need the potbelly stove down in West Texas.
1,500 miles apart, each brother living alone in the wild. Did the two of you ever talk about the why of it? It's not the most common thing in the world for two brothers from the same family to go off into nature and live there.
I think we both felt a culture where you're trying to gain material things and advance in a career was sort of inauthentic, whereas nature felt like it was more open, like a place where we could really be ourselves. I'm using my language. Ted's would have been much more critical of the society in which we found ourselves.
Well, yes.
The FBI says an American Airlines 727 landed safely today after a small bomb exploded in a mail pouch in the cargo hold.
What Ted Kaczynski thought, what he believed,
a mysterious package bomb exploded in the face of United's President Percy Wood.
got lost in the violence of what he did.
There was blood all over his face.
It was way back in 1978 that he began mailing small packages around the country.
A powerful firebomb was found in a hallway of the University of Utah yesterday.
Little bombs that were designed to explode when the packages were unwrapped, or in some cases simply picked up.
Investigators called him the Unabomber because he targeted universities and high-tech businesses.
UN for university, A for airline.
Last Saturday, the so-called Unabomber struck again with deadly results.
3 dead, 23 injured over almost a generation. Were you ever in touch with him during those 17 years?
Yeah, we wrote letters to each other a lot. In fact, the last time I saw him, spent I think about 4 or 5 days with Ted and had no idea that he was doing anything violent. Had a decent time. It felt like our relationship was pretty solid.
For the better part of 17 years, Ted Kaczynski lived in near total isolation, all the while desperate for attention. While scattering explosives around the country, he'd been working on a 35,000-word manifesto. In 1995, he sent it to the Washington Post and the New York Times. If they didn't publish, he threatened to strike again.
The bomber calls his manifesto Industrial Society and Its Future, and in it he urges a revolution against what he calls the industrial system.
Do you remember what he wrote as to his motivation for using the violence?
Yeah, he said it was to take revenge against society.
More than that. More than that. He says, if we had never done anything violent and had submitted the present writings to a publisher, they probably would not have been accepted. In order to get our message before the public with some chance of making a lasting impression, we've had to kill people. Wow. Management of the two newspapers struggled with the Unabomber's offer. It was, after all, simple blackmail.
The FBI said today it hopes someone will see the article and recognize the author.
And, of course, someone did, albeit reluctantly.
Eventually, after a few weeks, I got to the point of saying, I think it might be 50-50 that my brother wrote that manifesto.
An attorney in Washington, D.C. approached the FBI on behalf of a man who had come to suspect that the Unabomber might be his own brother.
The longest manhunt in FBI history was finally over, thanks to David Kaczynski.
Attorney General Janet Reno personally approved seeking the death penalty against Theodore Kaczynski.
I was just devastated. There aren't going to be any innocent victims now, but maybe going to have to go through the rest of my life with my brother's blood on my hands. What's that going to be like?
It was David's wife who put things in perspective.
Linda turned to me and said, Dave, there are other people out here suffering terribly, people who've lost their dearest loved ones, people who will be disabled for the rest of their lives. You're not the biggest victim in this story.
And so in 1997, at Linda's suggestion, David began contacting family members of those killed and injured by his brother's bombs to apologize. Most did not engage, but Gary Wright did. He'd been badly injured in 1987 when Ted Kaczynski left a bomb at Wright's computer store. Gary, it would have been reasonable if you had done what the doctor told you and then hoped that you never heard the name Kaczynski again for the rest of your life.
Probably so.
Instead, what happened?
Well, I had a long time to process it, and I redefined for myself what forgiveness was.
We were both on healing journeys of a sort, but we were both looking for a path forward that would be positive, and we had so much in common.
One family doesn't have to suffer forever because of the act of one.
Over the years, the two have made numerous joint appearances, like this one at a Unitarian Universalist church in the Texas Hill Country. They've been over the same ground dozens of times, living proof that compassion and friendship can emerge from violence and tragedy.
200 pieces of shrapnel were removed from my body, about a dozen surgeries to go through to put me back together. Tendon grafts, artery cuts, that was the physical part. But the mental side, that was lots of years to deal with. Took a long time.
As for Ted Kaczynski's manifesto, it's doubtful that it would have received the attention it has without the campaign of violence he unleashed. He got that part right. We're still talking about the carnage almost 50 years later. Have you ever read it?
Read it? Yeah.
What do you make of it?
There is some truth to it. When you have to make the choice between technology and something else, you lose some freedoms.
His essential argument was that we think technology gives us more control over our lives, but at a certain point it becomes an illusion. In some ways it looks kind of prophetic. I mean, as we're looking at AI, artificial intelligence, will this sort of take away from us our ability to think through things? Will we replace human creativity and human thought with something inhuman.
Ted Kaczynski died by suicide in prison in 2023. He was already dying of cancer. He never reconciled with his brother. But Gary Wright, one of his victims, has become one of David Kaczynski's closest friends. You're an unlikely pair.
I agree with that.
Because?
I look around the world today, and I don't find many folks who cross the courtroom and come to some reconciliation.
I always try to keep a little space in the back of my head for one guy who's saying, come on, Koppel, this is really weird.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I'm not going to tell you there's a script for this.
But in what was otherwise a very dark story, it does offer an unexpected glimmer of hope.
I think Gary has been one of the greatest blessings of my life. It shows that friendship across differences and barriers is really possible. It helped to heal my belief in the possibility that human beings can live together in peace, in mutual respect, and in love.